Welcome to the first ever ISAT Spotlight. And today we have in studio a guest, former Palatine High School social studies teacher, Jeanne Hedgepeth. And welcome, Jeanne.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the reasons we brought you in here, of course, is you have a very interesting story to tell. And it's quite a sad story, actually. But I have hopes that it does have a happy ending when we finally get to that part.
Well, we're in America, and most of our stories have happy endings.
Yeah, they do, right?
So I have that.
They
hope.
should be.
I have that same hope.
So let's get into that. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. You were a former social studies teacher in Palatine, and just can you go through your background with that a little bit?
Well, yes. I'm the oldest of 6 kids from working class family in Niles. I put myself through school. I worked in 1995. I was hired by Mount Assisi Academy, the lowest paying high school in the state of Illinois. A wonderful experience. I had to work on the weekends in a restaurant in order to, pay my rent and feed myself and pay those student loan bills, but I just enjoyed it like crazy. And then in 2000, I had the good fortune of being hired by District 211, Palatine High School, social studies department chair, came to see me teach. He liked what he saw, and he hired me.
Okay.
And I have worked my butt off and enjoyed doing so for that district. Consider myself Palatine Pirate. Proud to be a pirate. Once a pirate, always a pirate, they say. So I don't know if they really mean it. So, yeah, and so I worked there in the social studies department. I taught the Constitution, I taught economics, I taught women's studies, and I taught AP human geography.
Okay. And how long were you at Palatine?
From 2000 till 2020.
Oh, so 20 years you were there.
Yep.
And so, obviously you probably enjoyed that time there, and probably nothing strange happened or no career-changing events or anything. But obviously there was a point to which they decided to separate you from the services that you provided with Palatine High School. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Well, on June 1st, 2020, COVID was happening, and I was on vacation. School was out, and I was in Florida, and it was the last day of my vacation there. And, these riots were going on, as well as protests. I personally differentiate from the two. Peaceful protest is called for in our Constitution. As a matter of fact, I would argue we probably need more of them. But rioting, I don't believe it should be allowed, and it was being allowed. And I found it very frightening and unconstitutional, as well as scary for people, and unfair to businesses and homeowners, and police were being killed. And just the stories that I was reading about that were being completely ignored by mainstream media, but that you could find that were out there, because of the internet. And so I had Facebook. I had it since 2008. I never requested a friend. They've all requested me. As a teacher, I never had any students. But if they had graduated and they wanted to be my Facebook friend, I don't think I ever said no to any of them. I posted, the usual generic stuff. But in the past few years prior, things had gotten very political, as everybody knows, right. And I started voicing more of my political views. And I have a feeling I was being trolled, but that's another part of this. But I made my views known, and they weren't liked by a few people. And on June 1st, I got off the plane and found out that people had sent in a couple of my posts to the district and said, fire this teacher. Shortly thereafter, a Black Lives Matter protester got a hold of those posts, and the fact that I was a teacher and some other stories that people were telling him that were untrue, because he stated publicly things about me that he was told that are absolutely false. but he stated them as if they were true, and he has it on good authority, and I deserve to be fired. Zero tolerance was his whole theme against me on his Facebook page. I don't know, he and some other people, he said publicly on NBC that he represents this website they put together called District 211 Community for Justice.
Okay.
And on there, they had a link so that people could click it and send a form letter to the district school board. And they attached those controversial posts that I had. They sent, that could be done easily. And they also get to anonymously talk about any staff members that they don't like. And I know some stories I read on there that are clearly about me are completely false too. So now you have these people also engaging in defamation at large out there in the community, and I think it's very egregious. It shouldn't be allowed.
So the posts themselves, you had mentioned that there's a difference between protesting and rioting, and rioting in any legal term is a criminal offense. So your posts, were they just specifically about rioting, or?
Well, one of them was a meme that I just reposted. I didn't make it up. If you want to stop the riot, do you think this would stop the riots? Septic tank and hosing them down.
Right.
Well, people were comparing that to the civil rights and Bull Connor, as if I was suggesting, like they compared that, thinking that I was doing the same thing, which I wasn't at all, not at all. So that was just ridiculous. It's if anything, it's a bad joke.
So even that alone is just a comment on rioting again.
Right.
Okay.
So to me, the inhumane thing is the rioting. However you're going to end it, it should end. And so that was like, could this work? I mean, really, it's like one of those things. Like, what could we do to stop this? Because nobody was doing anything. The president wasn't putting in the National Guard, or if he was offering it, was being, nobody was taking him up on it. I don't know. I was very upset that he didn't just send troops in to stop it, and especially Minnesota, Chicago. It was bad,
Sure.
Another one was a conversation I was having with somebody, a young lady who was in my class, I believe 10 or 11 years prior. And I made, I said something on a post on her page. She posted something, and I didn't agree with it. And then she said, "Shut up with your white privilege." And then I said, "No, I will not. I live in a free country, and white privilege to me is like the N-word. It's racist, And I continued to say that I felt that she might, if she thinks our country is racist, she needs to travel the world to see that racism is ubiquitous and probably worse. And I said no other country does more to mitigate racism than our country, and that's just a fact. I mean,
Yes.
After I made these comments, a book came out that said that somebody wrote that indeed we are the least racist country in the world. So what else did I say to her? And I suggested that she look at Thomas Sowell and Larry Elder and Candace Owens for guidance about. I go, that's who I listen to.
So those are three black people who are part of a conservative thought process. They're conservative people out in there for Turning Point USA, for other organizations. And so you suggested that she follows suit and check them out. Yes.
And I wonder if Thomas Sowell would label himself conservative, because I see him as somebody who, he definitely labeled himself more on the liberal Marxist side of things back in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
And then as he investigated and looked for truth, he found that much of what he was, being taught and espousing himself was false. And he's one of our most brilliant treasures in this country. And the fact that more people don't know who he is shameful, because he is just one of the most brilliant people in America, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. So the story continued. Basically, you're in a sense trying to educate people on that thought process. And so you put up a meme basically, saying that rioting is illegal in a sense, and you continued the education process of everybody else out there. So what went wrong?
Well, and so I don't know. I know I know the smart thing to do is to keep your mouth shut about everything, political. If you have a job anywhere in America and you're on Facebook, well, okay, I'm in a free country, and I have opinions, and why can't I say what I think? One of the other things they had a problem was that I said I don't want to go home now that the Civil War has begun. Well, for years prior, I was saying we're heading towards the Civil War because of what I was watching in our society.
Right.
And, I think I'm pretty politically astute. So to keep my mouth shut just because I'm afraid that I'll lose my job, that's not America. And I'm not going to live in that kind of America, So I took that chance, and they want to make it a different kind of America where if you do say things that we think are, I'm being called a racist, and I'd like you to find something racist about anything I said.
Anything in support of America is called racist now,
That's true.
or white supremacy or whatever.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, just the fact that I don't believe in the term white privilege set him off.
Right.
I don't. Just because I don't believe that, I suggested to this young lady that the issues for the black community are being ignored, the real issues, such as abortion in the black community. The rate of abortion is very high, and Planned Parenthood is brought there, and subsidized, and it's kind of promoted. Are you okay with that? You know what I mean? And the neighborhoods with the gun violence, it's.
Well, that's the systemic racism that they talk about. Is that
right?
You have a mechanism in place to eliminate the population of the black community. You have mechanisms to bring them down in the sense of drugs and no labor, no support, and a lot of those issues that developed, yes, it was a system that did it, and unfortunately it's the system that they've all bought into, which is the Democrat system.
Thank you. That's what I wanted her to see. And I didn't say it, I alluded to liberal elites, but that the Democrat Party is in charge of every city where that's happening. And has been for decades. So it's like watching North Korea and South Korea, why are they so different when their ancestry and upbringing is the same?
Right.
Well, just watch how the government rules and which people flourish.
Yes.
So what's happening in our cities, look at where the Democrats rule versus Republicans. And I want Republicans to be more conservative than they are. I feel that many of them are, have helped support this Democrat failure as well. So it's, it's not necessarily party, it's ideology or truth.
So we get to that point to which, you have a lot of social media interaction, some education, some, ideas are being passed back and forth. But there had to have been a point to which somebody flipped on the switch and said, we need to take this a step further to remove Jeanne from this facility.
Right. So I got off the plane on June 1st and saw that people were like, that there was a problem with my page, and I took it all down because I'm like, whoa, what is this reaction? I'm not used to this. And students who love me are saying hateful things. What is going on? And people I don't know are talking about me, and and then the school called me, and so then I just laid low while they investigated. So I was asked to explain my posts, which I just did to you.
Right.
And that was it. Okay, we're going to investigate. And then I don't hear anything from the union. I keep asking them things, and I'm like, do you see what this Black Lives Matter protester is saying about me online? They're going to hold a rally, all these things. And I'm bothering them, I felt like, And the district wasn't contacting me. Fox News knocked on my door, what was it, June 6th, I think it was. And I just closed the door. I was scared, like I know. I'm not afraid to tell the truth about what I think, but I know that they're not honest in their reporting, so I'm not going to take a chance of what they're going to say, how they're going to edit me.
I think we've all lost our trust of the mainstream media.
So there's no way that I'm going to go on there, and nobody's advising me. So it was, really, it was really the lowest point in my life. My husband took his life in 2015.
Oh,
it's a tie for lowest point in my life. Like, talk about anxiety and depression. I really got a taste of it, like I hadn't before. Mm-hmm. So then I was, nothing was happening, and I told my union president, please, what the heck is going on? He's like, okay, we'll have an informal meeting with the new superintendent. And so we have a meeting, and she degrades me and yells at me and says, I'm going to recommend, now this was June 11th or 12th, I'm going to recommend to the board that you be fired. I'm like, oh, geez. And my sister drove me there. I couldn't drive anymore. I mean, I was low. And so we go outside, but they wouldn't let her in the meeting, so I'm in there like alone. And my sister heard this. They told me, if you get fired, you're going to lose your pension. Mm. I'm like, oh my gosh, will they let me retire then? Because I can't lose my pension, right?
Right.
You just can't lose that. And they're like, let me go ask her. So on a yellow piece of legal pad, Jeanne Hedgepeth, I request to retire. She accepts it. And now the next day, the rally that the Black Lives Matter protester was going to have can be called off. And now the school won't look as bad, and I can retire. And then I learned that's not even true. You have to be a felon. If you're discharged for a felony, then you lose your pension.
Yeah.
I'm like, what liars? And I also had gotten, which I didn't have a time to present to them, was I got the family medical leave from my doctor because I was just like, I couldn't cope. I was like, what am I dealing with here? And can I just take a mental health break from this whole thing?
Yeah, because it's a tremendous amount of pressure.
Oh, it was incredible. And they refused to accept it. And that's when I got my own lawyer. And again, they refused, then I wasn't using the union's help because they weren't helping me really, I felt. And I got a lawyer, and he submitted the FMLA, and they said, this is the irony of it, they said, no, she's not working, and therefore she doesn't need it. Wait a minute, if I'm not working, it's summer, I'm not working, then how come it's summer, I'm working, and my Facebook posts matter? Why do those matter?
It's hypocritical.
Yeah. So so I had that lawyer, and the fact that according to them, I hurt myself. I hurt my relationships with colleagues, my trustworthiness with the district, and I revealed my racial bias.
So you told the truth, and they felt that was not in line with Palatine school policy. So the truth is damaging.
Yes, they said that they don't share my values. And I don't know what values those are exactly. Definitely not the value of our Constitution, is what I would say.
I think values, what we've learned over the last, especially 3-4 years now, the values have become fluid, evolving to where we just don't really want them to go, which is no values.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So obviously now you're at that position where, is it retire? Is it, are you letting me go?
So I rescinded my retirement. On June 18th, they had a board meeting, and for an hour people got to say whatever they wanted to about whatever they wanted to, and a lot of it was, against me. Most of whom I didn't know any of those people, so they're just people that didn't like what I said. A few people knew me and spoke. They also read some letters that were submitted to the board, both pro and con. And then they decided to go ahead with firing me. And on July 16th board meeting, they voted to terminate me 5-2.
Okay.
In the closed session, my lawyer got to go in there and plead my case, basically. They didn't ask him any questions. They didn't read any letters that he brought that were written for me. And they really, I don't know what happened in there. I FOIA'd it twice.
So it was a predetermined action.
Yeah, well, you know it from my conversation with the superintendent on June 11th when she said, I'm going to recommend to the board that you be terminated. And so they didn't give me, they're supposed to give a hearing, and they're counting my lawyer being in closed session as a hearing. But I don't know how that can be when I was on the agenda to be fired, to be voted to be. So where's a hearing when you're already on an agenda? How does that constitute as a hearing, you know? I mean, fine if that was in the last board meeting or something, you know. Okay, we'll consider that, and we'll vote next board meeting. So I think how they went about a lot of this is not just political, but unfair, not legal.
And, you know, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but when you look at the current atmosphere of school boards in Illinois especially, and I would assume across parts of the country, you have not only possibly teachers that are looked at negatively, but now parents do, and even to the extent that you have FBI in Washington saying that parents are domestic terrorists. So anybody who has that moral compass within them really doesn't stand a chance against compromised school boards. And, you know, obviously a superintendent that's in the same pack as them, in a sense.
Right.
So, you know, obviously you are now, you know, you've been let go, and I would assume the story hasn't stopped there.
Oh, no. Well, so, you know, this Black Lives Matter protester who I would bet money on, if he left it alone, it wouldn't have brought nobody would have, you know, a bunch of complainers would have gotten to complain. Maybe it would have made the Daily Herald, but WGN, NBC, and Fox News had it on their stations. And they're like, oh, it went all the way to the Daily UK, whatever that is, the Daily Mail. Anyway, and I guarantee you that without this guy banging the drum,
Sure.
that it wouldn't have happened. So the saddest part about this, in a way, is I was telling my lawyer in the summer, like, look what the untrue things being said about me. Oh, people can have their opinion. I'm like, they can lie about me? Really? So, you know, I'm depressed, and now I gotta pick myself up, and I gotta work. I have a teenage daughter who's about to attend Palatine High School, and we're, you know, I need to work. I was working about 4 jobs. And in December, I heard that this Black Lives Matter protester was going to run for the school board that fired me. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, this guy defamed me. How can he have the nerve to run? I don't understand this. I thought I'd check it out, and I went to AVVO, where you can kind of like see if any lawyers would be interested in a case. And so I put it in there, and one lawyer called me and asked me the story. He's like, you got a good case, I'll take it. Well, that's great, but he costs a fortune. And by the time he served him, it was March, you know, and I called him in December. We talked in January, and I don't understand why it took till March for him to serve the guy. They think that you know, whatever people think, I don't care. And he was served, and he still got, not only did he get elected to the school board, he was backed by the very teachers union that was now representing me in front of the Illinois State Board of Education. So
Yeah.
they literally
That's an odd
they literally
circumstance.
and it's been suggested that they gave him somewhere close to $10,000, according to some people I know who pay attention on that kind of thing. So, do research to find out the validity of that. But regardless, whether they just say, "Oh yeah, this is a good candidate," actually, the president of the union told me, he goes, full disclosure, and I believe this was in January, we're going to hear him out and see if we're going to, he's a really viable candidate. So there's a chance we're going to back him. So sure enough, they did. And he made it to the board. That's like really sad. So they say that I'm getting fired for my racial bias, yet he can say racist things, because he did. He said in my class, I validated little white boys, in a very derogatory kind of way.
Okay.
And that I made a girl of color feel bad. Like, I would never do that. So everything he was saying is untrue. And the fact that he's on that school board, yet after demonizing one of their teachers, should concern everybody.
Of course.
But it doesn't. And even my sister's like, well, the voters voted. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know that we ever know who we're really voting for, do we? So there's that. And then a really positive thing happened this past July, which is about 2 days before it was going to be too late. Judicial Watch
Oh, Tom Fitton, yes.
heard about my case and decided to take it. And
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I am now suing the school board members and the district for violating my First Amendment right. And they don't think they have. And I don't know how they don't think they have.
Yeah, there's
And
it's a reality check, and they'll face reality soon enough.
I mean, they're a government body, and they have teachers teach the Constitution. Like, there's a requirement to take a Constitution test in high school. And they're in charge of that.
Well, again, and this goes for, and I'm not going to hold any punches back when I talk about BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement. Basically, when you look at what they've done, the infiltration of every facet of our life, and I don't mean just BLM. I mean, first of all, BLM it's a communist organization,
Right.
and there is no questioning that at this point, because even their founders have said it was. So they've managed to get in and do this. So the election, of course, is meaningless, and we have an election integrity problem here in the States as it is.
Right.
So everything is very questionable, but it's good news that you have at least an organization such as Judicial Watch to back up, to take your point and proceed with it. And how far along are they with that process?
We're in discovery.
Oh, you're in discovery now. And have you had any communication or feedback or anything from their side yet?
As far as the district is concerned, like their answers to
Yes.
us, yes, they've given their answers.
Okay. And I guess we can assume.
I'm just laughing because
I know. I can assume what they were because, and you alluded to the fact that they don't see where they have said or done anything wrong in regards to the Constitution, which BLM is most adamantly about trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
They do not want that document, and it's the document that that protects our rights. And in order for them to achieve their eventual goal of taking away all of our rights, that document has to cease to exist. So you're fighting for that.
Yep, I
Yes,
sure am.
Thank you for that.
I really am. Even like, so I'm suing the Black Lives Matter protester for defamation of character, and which is absolutely what he's done. Not only that, but also for interfering with my contract with the district, because I'm pretty darn sure that if he didn't get involved in it, that maybe they would have made a different choice. But their paranoia about the politics of it all and the visual, the optics, right? This was all about optics. It wasn't about,
Sure.
it's not about truth. It's not about education, you know, which is supposed to be about drawing out truth and having discussions about all the, you know, the issues surrounding my situation. How about we all sit at a table and discuss this?
Sure.
Like, you know, like that would have been cool, but they couldn't do that. Because it's easier to just get rid of her. Out.
Well, you know, and again, your position, your stance, your viewpoints on the morality, on the Constitution and everything else stands in the way of one of the projects that they put out there and that they are trying to implement in, you know, of course in the school systems, and that's the 1619 project.
Oh,
And if they want to implement that project, people like you stand in their way.
absolutely.
And, you know,
Well, and the critical race theory as well.
exactly.
You know, I have a funny situation to share about that. Here's the irony of some of this, too. So in June, I had my post, right? But I don't know if there's anyone in that school that tried more than I did to make it a healthy environment for everybody, regardless of sex, color, gender, all those things, right? Absolutely. And so with the critical race theory, when we came in January 2020 back from break and we had our Teachers Institute Day, we were asked, okay, everyone, when this country was founded, and he alludes to Hamilton the musical. Have you seen that?
I have no reason to.
Okay, well, in that musical, there's a song, I want to be in the room where it happens. I want to be in the room where it happens. The room of power, right? This is where Alexander Hamilton supposedly wants to be, in the room where it happens. And what is the room where it happens? It's where the people who govern get together and talk about how they're going to govern.
Right.
And they said, you know, who was in that room? White males who own property. Who was left out of that room? Women, black people, blah, 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 the whole list, right? Now, how far have we come? Tell us where you think how far we've come as far as who can be in the room where it happens. Go stand, we're in the gymnasium. Stand anywhere from 0 to 100 of how far you think we've come to who can be in that room. I stood at 100. I stood pretty much alone. There were a few people that were willing to nudge next to me just at 99, 98. and then we had to give our reasons why. And I'm like, nobody's kept out of that room. Anyone can be. We just had a black president. We had a woman run. Nobody's kept out of the room where it happens. There's nothing legally binding that keeps anyone out of positions of power in this country at all. So there you have it. And I know that people after that were talking negatively about me. Not only do you get a vibe depending on where you go, but people that are your friends will tell you, oh, nice job. You got some people talking, you know?
Yeah.
So there so here they have this, and I remember asking the assistant principal, I said, are you okay with me saying that? Because I got a vibe that I shouldn't have, been, I should have played the game and pretended that I would stand at 70 like everybody else. And he's like, no, that's great. Supposedly this critical race theory is us having tough conversations. So the other thing they had was they showed us a video of kids saying, we want teachers to share what they really think about things. So that's what they're telling me in January. Teachers, we want you to tell us what you really think about things. And then when I do it on my own time, on my own Facebook page, in the summer, in June, they don't want me to say what I really think.
Well, I think it's teachers, say what you want, and then we're going to use it against you later.
Yeah, right. And so you're getting double messaging here,
Sure.
you know, and they don't really want to have those hard conversations. Otherwise, they would have had one with me at a table with people, and we would have had hard conversations, you know, about what I said on my Facebook, and who was truly hurt, and who was pretending to be hurt, and who understands but thinks that maybe we should all have this conversation together, and other people who say she said nothing wrong, and I agree with everything she said. You know what I mean? Like all the different views around the table. That would have been honest and more American,
Yes.
and more educational. But so, yeah, and that March, one of the things I did every month was I made a video that the whole school would see in homeroom. And I was the editor, the producer, the cinematographer, the writer, you know, but the kid had we'd go up to people in the hall and have a question for the month. And diversity, why is it great at Palatine High School for there to be diversity? So, you know, if I was this big racist, would I be making that video? You know what I mean? Like the fact that they're firing me for my racial bias, yet I don't, for 20 years you let me work and I'm a racist? And there are people at the school that have said to people I know, just like I knew people were talking about me standing at 100, now I can't believe she hid who she really was all this time, like as if I was pretending to be like a caring, nice person, and now they know I'm really a racist. Are you guys? That's how. You know, I will admit that my knowledge on the topic is more than most people's because I've been paying attention to this. I was 6 when Martin Luther King got killed. You know, I've been paying attention to race relations in the politics and in the culture all my life. And then I studied it, you know, more than the average person. And then I taught it more than the average person.
Right.
So my knowledge of this, I mean, have the people promoting critical race theory read most of the books that this is based on? They don't even know.
No.
But they buy it. But they don't examine it deeply or in breadth. And it's frightening because it's not a good thing at all. It's very bad, and yet they're buying it like it's candy. Like, who can't? It's all about loving each other. No, it isn't.
Yeah, well, the critical race theory finds there's a lot of similarities, parallels within the Marxist doctrine.
Yep.
And, you know, the 1619 Project itself, the history that's embedded in that it's the only word that comes to mind when looking through it is fantasy.
Yes,
it's all
a lie.
fallacy.
It's totally.
And you know, and they want this to be implemented and brought through the school system so that the children basically learn to hate this country on a systemic.
Yes.
Here's that word again, systemic nature. So, you know, a lot of the things that communists do is a mirror image of what they're trying to do.
Yep.
So they blame you for something that they're doing.
Yep.
And we see that in politics today. We see that in, you know, a lot of the messages that are even coming from our own current administration, the Biden administration and a lot of the people involved there. So it makes it, to me, it is of no surprise that a lot of this that you're experiencing is just a function of their process, the system. You were eliminated because you were the wrench in their wheel.
Yep. Precisely. It's true.
So going forward, how, you know, you mentioned that Judicial Watch has taken it up, and is there a time frame that they're shooting for, or that you would like to have this thing settled by?
Well, it could end up in the Supreme Court.
You never know.
I got a lot of people sent me, if you saw, there was a cheerleader who, in high school, a high school cheerleader who on her own social media page said really negative and profane things about her school and the cheerleading team, or the school, and they kicked her off of cheerleading, and it went to the Supreme Court. And everyone sent that to me like, this is like your case, you know, you said your views on social media. I think it's very different was very interesting, too. The only dissenter was Clarence Thomas, and his dissent for that cheerleading situation is very interesting, and he's pretty brilliant. Also, another person, you know. It's really sad. Honestly, like, some of the most brilliant conservatives in this country have been black. And so, like, the fact that they don't get the attention they deserve and the accolades from their own community, let alone everybody else, is really to the detriment of our society.
And actually, black conservatives, not only when they found out to be conservative, they're usually mocked. And you know, look at Ben Carson, and you know, the list goes down. You can just keep on naming, and they try to turn it into a joke, and it's
they
actually
call them white
sad.
supremacists.
Yeah,
they call them, like, speaking. I mean, it's just the convoluted logic and hatred of what they say, and they can't. What I find from these Marxists on the left, they don't argue. They can't argue points because they're lying, and therefore everything is character assassination.
that's the only thing they have left.
That's all they have.
So when faced with truth, they always either walk away or resort to violence or just start name calling.
Yep.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's the MO.
Yeah, and and it's really sad for the young people that are very blind to this, because they're naive. They're idealistic. I remember being the same way, being idealistic. What are their adults doing? Why aren't we all just loving each other? And then you just, you know, you read some Shakespeare and you read the Bible and you realize people are not good, and we have choice, and you're not going to create any society that's utopian because we get to choose, and too many people choose evil or mistakenly, make mistakes, choose wrong because they don't know any better, or they don't have the right guide, or, all those kinds of things. And so I think so much of this is naivete. That's where a lot of the support comes from, is very naive people.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of it's naive, and a lot of it's just weakness too. And when you look at the Republican leadership, and obviously the Republican Party's fractured. You have, due to the popularity of Trump, a MAGA side, and you have the old Rhino side. And when you look at something like this, and I look at it as a lot of weakness, where a lot of this could have been put under control from the very onset if people had bravery. Like, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's just point out to what they've done. And you had mentioned earlier about riots and protests, and there might have been some protests, but I don't think it was affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement. Where they came in was in a strange cooperation with Antifa.
Yes. And
everything that they did was not peaceful. It was destroying businesses, destroying people's lives, intimidation, the same things that Hitler's brown shirts did in the 30s, the Antifa and BLM, and you're aware of that, being a social studies teacher. So it's the same tactics that they use. So at the very onset of these issues, of course our government literally lied and said, there's nothing happening. Your lying eyes. You don't see. We haven't seen anything, and it's quite comical. But of our Republican leadership in D.C., why did they not, at that time when the riots came out, say, we're going to put legislation to make Black Lives Matter a domestic terrorist organization?
And Antifa. 100%.
I think even,
and they're doing it for school board parents?
Yes.
It's like, what clown world am I living in?
And I think it was several weeks ago, Ted Cruz said he is going to try to put through something for the Muslim Brotherhood.
Good.
To make them a domestic terrorist organization. And
CARE should be too.
Yeah, CARE should be as well. But I see no purpose that BLM shouldn't be put on that list.
100%.
What have they done for the communities involved? Where's the money go? We all know what happened after George Floyd in Minneapolis, and the millions and millions and millions of dollars from corporations, from banking, from public donations gets funneled into donation into the BLM movement, and all of the donations get sent to Act Blue, which is the financing arm for the DNC, the Democrat Party. And all of that money, 100% of it went into the top, I think, 7 or 8 candidates running for president in 2020. So where is that strength from a party that's supposed to be protecting conservatives?
Right.
And they failed us. And they're still failing us.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And the fact that they didn't condemn those riots, that they don't declare those people terrorists, I mean, it's like they're in cahoots, right? You say the same thing about going to war. Like Eisenhower warned us about the, what did he call that again with the war machine? He didn't call it that. Military-industrial complex, right? And Trump was kind of shutting that down, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And yet, what's the first thing Biden does? I mean, I don't know. I wish the young people today were more concerned about those wars, the wars we were in, and their entire lives we were at war, right? The 20-something, the 20-somethings, their whole lives we were at war.
As a nation, can you really point to a time we were not at war?
Yeah, you have a point there.
I think it's a lot easier to look at that. You can look through history from 1776 till 2021, and you have war. You might have maybe a year or two where there's nothing really physically. Well, actually, there's something physically happening. I don't know if there's a peacetime we've had.
Wow.
And quite honestly, my opinion is, our government has been at war with the American people since 1871.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different thing I'll talk about another time.
I'm interested. Oh, I'm going to be looking that date up.
Yeah.
Well, I would appreciate, so Judicial Watch,
Yes.
back to, all that. Judicial Watch is pro bono, and I thank you, Judicial Watch. I thank God for you. You're my heroes. You rescued me. Like, it really was, at the last minute, too, that they came in. Very divine intervention. But when it comes to my Black Lives Matter protester being sued by me for defamation, those costs are getting crazy. And in April, another divine intervention happened, which was a gentleman came to the restaurant I was working in and said, I heard your story and I want to help. I want to start a GoFundMe. Started a GoFundMe. Within a month, 5 weeks later, they took it down. They said we violated their terms.
That's what I was going to ask you is,
Yeah.
When did they take it down?
We violated their terms, and what terms those were, they don't tell you, because obviously someone called and said, she's a racist, right? Oh, she is? Okay.
Yeah.
You're down.
We don't want any of that around
Right.
here.
So then he put it on Give, Send, Go, and there have been some very generous donations, but a lot of people don't know about it, and, he's not somebody that has a lot of money. I'm sure he's on the school board to go up in politics. I'm sure that's his plan. I know he has 2 children. I would hate to take any money out of his children's mouths. If this gentleman actually apologized publicly, I would drop it. But I feel that so many people are defamed, and our First Amendment is golden. It's sacred. And I'm suing him not just for me, but for us, for the principle. And so I need us to help me pay my legal costs because
Right.
that bill keeps getting
Yeah,
higher
it's
and
in
higher.
a pile, and yes.
Yeah, and I am going to be out of money pretty soon.
Yeah.
So if anybody, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and with Josh to get the word out. Please
Yeah. And
help me
we'll
save our country.
we'll put a link up and let you guys know about how you could participate and donate to. Again, it's not GoFundMe because they took it down, but we'll give you the particulars later.
Thank you.
And you can get that within the either the YouTube comments or the Telegram comments or of that nature.
I really appreciate it. And I really think like the more, like I try to donate to things like Kyle Rittenhouse. I feel like the more people that give $20 to something, that sends a greater message than a few people sending thousands. You know what I mean? Like, I really think that it's, I wish a lot of people would know to help, if that doesn't make sense. Because
Yes.
I'm doing it for principle, and if you believe in those principles, please help me fight for those principles. I'm fighting against being defamed, and on some level I'm fighting against BLM, because
Yes.
he is a Black Lives Matter protester, and his whole basis was that I was, I need to have some training. Teachers at that school, well, we are already under training. We are doing
It's not training, it's indoctrination.
Exactly.
It's following a certain policy that they have, and anybody that falls outside of that needs to be trained.
And I was falling outside of that for sure. And that was one of his things he kept saying. These teachers need to be trained in race, race relations, whatever he was saying. And I think I know more than he does, even though he's black.
Yeah.
I can't say anything because I'm white. Yes, I can. I can say a lot.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the Constitution. It doesn't discriminate on age, sex, religion, race, vaccine status, or anything.
That's great.
So,
It's true.
And the easiest way to manipulate this country is to eliminate that document.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be a sad day that ever happened, because your freedoms for everything that you do would disappear.
Yeah.
And even you BLM supporters out there, your freedoms would disappear. Your rights to protest would quickly be gone.
Yep.
And they don't realize it.
Yep. They really don't. And that's the naivete.
Yes.
Truly. I wouldn't say ignorance, because I don't know that they're choosing not to know. I think they're being taught wrong. Or they're, I don't know. Some of it's ignorance.
It's a brainwashing aspect of it to it as well. People make promises, they fulfill what attracts them.
Right.
And, whether it's money, whether it's, some false power position or something of that nature. So you can manipulate people easily that way.
Right.
So let's go back. If the end result of your cases, whether it's through your defamation case or through Judicial Watch, is there any target or anything where you resume your teaching duties again?
Oh, well, I've applied. I've tried to become a teacher at other places. And, one of the things you have to do on Palatine, which is the teacher application, have you ever been asked to not return or been terminated? So you have to put that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people don't want to touch it. And I talked to two principals of North Shore Middle Schools, Catholic schools,
Okay.
Prior to this school year, in the summer. And one of them said to me, he went to Palatine High School. He was very excited to see my resume. Oh, she's a Palatine teacher. Cool, let's, he set up a date for us to, have a phone interview.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he calls me, he goes, okay, so he Googled me. So he's like, tell me your story. What happened? And so I told him. And then he was like, what can I say? What am I going to say if what can I say to people if I hire you? I go, well, maybe that you're a Catholic school that follows Jesus' model of mercy and forgiveness. So no, he did not hire me. Same with the other Catholic junior high up there on the North Shore somewhere, Lake Forest, Winnetka. So those were 2 interviews I had this summer. The summer before I had 2 also. Oh, I had one. And no, I had 2. One I actually got hired to substitute teach. But that was one of my 5 jobs that I actually never did it, but I was hired to do it.
Right.
I just couldn't fit it in my schedule. And the other one was at a school in the city, and she was very excited about me. And on Friday, she's like, okay, we got to talk by, are you available Monday? I'm like, oh, yeah. She's like, okay, I'll call you Monday. She Googled me, I'm sure, because I never heard back, and I wasn't going to call. Getting back into teaching has been a challenge. And people are like, would you even go back to that school? I'm like, well, yeah. I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
The problem isn't with me.
I think the problem is with them.
I do too. And so then that becomes, well, then do you want to work for people like them? I'm like, well, someone's got to save these kids from them, which I was doing for 20 years as far as I'm
what would
concerned.
be amazing is if you had all of the people within, is it District 211, said, let's put some candidates together for the next election and let's hire a board. Let's elect a board that's actually conservative, that has principles of supporting America, that support our Constitution, that want to balance the budget, that don't want to waste money, that wants to put something that's not like the 1619 project into place, but President Trump's 1776 project into place. And let's go with that. And if that happens, I think that the school board would gladly have you back.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
And I think that principal would be in trouble with a school board under those moral principles as well.
Yeah.
So I think, that's the solution that seems to be the most effective. And this has, even more so than what you're experiencing, a lot of those issues that led to you being fired, the critical race theory, the pornography that's being thrown into the school systems. And you think of the one, we were just out in Downers Grove at the school board meeting there because of Gender Queer, the book that was out there. But those type of things that are being indoctrinated into the kids, little by little, trickle by trickle, it's up to the parents and the families, that community, to elect school board members that don't agree to it. And in that sense, you as in the people can change your destiny with your kids, with the school.
Well, you're saying that, and I 100% agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like a lot of people do when anybody says, we need to challenge Pritzker, and everybody says, no one's going to be Pritzker. I think you get the same, like, they're never going to change the board. Let's just get out of this state. I mean, there's a hopelessness that's going on around here that we got to overcome for that to happen.
Well, that's kind of our namesake at Illinois, Standing Against Tyranny, right? So that's what we do. And for those that have doubts about Pritzker being untouchable in that sense, I'm going to say one word: Virginia.
Okay, good. Yes.
The model to defeat Pritzker is there.
Good.
And we, the people, all of us, become polling judges, become watchers. Start taking those positions away from the Democrats. Conservatives need to fill those positions. And little by little, county by county, we can make that difference. So earlier you had mentioned the rioting and the protests, and oddly enough, I was in Kenosha today and yesterday for the Rittenhouse trial. And yesterday I had the opportunity to interview a lot of the BLM, in this case, protesters. But have you been following the case?
Very closely. I love it. I find it very interesting. I have been praying for Kyle. I have donated to his fund a couple times. I get emails from his mom, not personal, but
All right.
please keep helping my son. It should never have gone to trial. There's just no doubt about it. And the incredible part to me is that the truth was obvious over a year ago, and the media running with things like they ran, like my story. The media lied. If you go and you watch Fox News, not only do they kind of lie, but they definitely don't give the other side of anything. They do not look at things objectively or with a wide lens. It's all narrow focus, this agenda. And it happened to him, it happened to me, that both in the same summer. So my heart goes out to him. Kenosha means a lot to me. My great uncle, I was at a funeral for him in the 90s and thought, look at this great little town on the lake.
Sure.
Halfway between Milwaukee and Chicago. This is a primo location.
Right.
I'm like, I should buy some real estate here. Too bad I have not a penny to my name. But yes, I have been following closely, and I'm really curious about the questions that you have been asking BLM protesters there.
Yeah, I couldn't voice my true opinions to them, but I wanted to know why they were there. Some of their slogans, some of their chanting. I asked them to clarify a lot of their points. For example, some of the things they were saying was basically in the sense that if we don't get what we want, we'll shut it down.
Yeah.
And through 2 days now, that's been the general message that was going through. And so I pulled one of the gentlemen. Actually, he wouldn't interview with anybody. He refused to interview with mainstream media, especially after the first day. And through today, he wouldn't do it, but he did with me. And so I pulled him down. I asked him, I said, can you explain? I go, there's going to be viewers out there that don't quite understand what you mean when you say shut it down. And, he went on. He said, well, he gave the standard, we're working together, we're doing this for peace. And none of it really made sense to shut it down. And I said, so what exactly are you going to shut down? And they said, well, we want people to come together and not participate with shops, with anything with government, to literally stop the system, to shut it down in order to protest Kyle Rittenhouse. And I said, so in the event that the verdict doesn't go as you believe, would you stop that? Would you not want that? Will you be satisfied with any verdict? And of course not. So on our website, on Illinois Standing Against Tyranny, on YouTube, that interview and several of the other interviews with the Black Lives Matter people are up there. And so we talked to them, and I jumped in on some of the interviews, and there were some other reporters who jumped in. There was a very active, I believe he was a WGN reporter. That gentleman was, I think, asking questions quite a bit. There was Right Side Broadcasting. They were there asking quite a few. But the smaller grassroots media groups like us and a lot of the private journalists there, they were more receptive to talking with us because we didn't have that fake news stigma and logo and everything else that came with it. So,
right.
In that sense, you can talk to them one-on-one a lot easier. So those are up there. You can check those out. But it was a fascinating situation. It was eye-opening for me. I've gone to rallies and different things before, and their tone changed. It followed the trial from, he should be convicted, he should be put away for life, throw away the key, he's a murderer. And then today they changed a little bit. Even some of their signs that they held up said, no mistrial, no mistrial. So they have a feeling of, where it's going. And today there was no verdict as well.
Well, I heard they have plenty of bricks. Did you see any of the bricks?
No. As we came into Kenosha, we didn't see any bricks. We didn't see any National Guard. They are around, obviously. I know they're in the burbs somewhere. But none of that really was there. As far as their opinions, and it was all very, how do I put this, planned. There's nothing out of there that was different from anything they've ever said. And I found it very ironic standing there. Of course, I was just the sight of BLM. I know who they are. They're communist and what they mean. But I find it very ironic that the people that are standing up there protesting to the people of Kenosha were the same organization, maybe even some of the same people that a year earlier were destroying the small businesses, burning down, committing crimes in Kenosha.
They were the reason for it.
Yeah, they were the reason. Actually, they are the reason why Kyle Rittenhouse is in the position he is now.
100%.
If they were never there,
never would have happened.
it never would have happened.
Just like I believe if the Black Lives Matter protester wasn't in Palatine making a case out of my situation, that never would have happened. So they're going around destroying lives on purpose. And they're not from Kenosha, right? Do you ask them where they're from?
No, I didn't. But from the few that I talked to, they were from Chicago, and some wouldn't say where they're from.
Was everyone black?
No. It was a mix. There was several white Black Lives Matter members, and I never interviewed any of them. But like even today, before we came back, I was talking with a few, and I had an interesting viewpoint from one of the girls, a white girl. She's dressed in everything Black Lives Matter, and another gentleman was asking her questions too, and he said, "Why are you supporting Black Lives Matter? You're white." And she said, "No, I'm not." And he goes, "What do you mean you're not? You look white." And she said, "We're all black." And he goes, "What do you mean by that?" And she goes, "Well, if you go," and she started giving some scientific theory behind it, saying that everybody, going
Started
back,
in Africa.
it started in Africa, and therefore everybody was black.
Yeah.
And through evolution, or something, I think she said, then it developed that way, and it goes against the theory and the science of genetics, but it's okay, it's her belief. But then a lot of people jumped in and said, they started questioning her, and there was a lot of the questions they were asking her she couldn't answer, and she would never be able to. But it brought up a situation again where once they're faced with truth, they become aggressive, and she didn't really get aggressive, but she started denying, and why are you talking to me, and walks away, and that seems to be the general pattern.
Yeah.
And likewise, there was a few on the other side that supported Kyle, that the rationalization of why they were there, I don't really necessarily agree with either.
Oh, what did they have to say?
I mean, some people they started bringing up Trump, where that had nothing to do with it,
Nothing.
or there was some that they were trying to use historical facts and things that just it wasn't wasn't applicable. It wasn't it didn't help the situation whatsoever.
Right.
And there's a few of them that basically they're just loudmouths, knuckleheads that just wanted to instigate.
Like the 3 people that Kyle killed.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them, maybe that one, is the one guy that his arm got blown off, was his wife there too?
I would assume. Yeah.
I think, no, I don't know, but it seems like, I don't know, but it sounds like they were all just looking for something to do,
Well,
something to get angry about, something to cause trouble.
Well, you don't carry weapons. You don't go to a city and riot and destroy things, and you're putting yourself in a position that when you're confronted with someone who's trying to defend whether himself or someone or something, you're putting yourself in a position to which you're hoping that they can quickly realize that you're safe. And I think in Kyle's instance, it wasn't a situation where, when you attack them, when you chase them, when you're carrying a weapon, you don't chase somebody with a rifle, period.
Right.
Or any kind of handgun,
Right.
or a weapon in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you're chasing somebody with a weapon,
Be prepared.
be prepared. Yeah, because good things don't happen with that. It's somebody's going to get hurt. Whether it's even the person with the weapon or you, or someone who is a bystander that doesn't deserve to be in
Yeah.
that situation. And so, but none of these people consider that, and because they're there for illegal purposes.
Right.
They're all there to do something bad to somebody or something.
And I think the bottom line with the media's depiction, nobody's looking for truth. What they're looking for it's to get the guns out of our hands,
Mm-hmm.
to say that self-defense. Just even that prosecutor saying, that he didn't have the right to have a gun there, and that you can't bring a gun to a fist fight, and that doesn't get. And this is, people believe this. People agree with them, and that gets promoted, and it's all about taking our guns.
Yeah,
That
it's
is-
another
that is
attack
what
on
it
the
is.
Constitution.
Yep.
Yep. And a lot of the protesters today actually brought up that point where they said, this isn't just about Kyle, this is a Second Amendment. You're trying to take away our right to protect ourselves.
That is definitely true.
And if you look at history, again, we're bringing history into this. If you look at all the major revolutions to which communism got their foothold, a lot of the same patterns are happening as far as division of people, whether it's race, religion, color, or, in this instance, they're even bringing in vaccine status to divide us. If you look at, the media, who takes a hold of the media? Yes, the side that's committing the revolution does. And, there's a slew of other factors that take place and that are happening right now. And people need to open their eyes a little bit and realize that.
And more people are, thank goodness. Hopefully this trial will open their eyes. I know that some people look at it as a distraction, and I just think it's not a distraction. I think it's really important, because I do think it is fundamentally a weapon against the Constitution.
Yeah, you've had free speech already with the censorship on social media and news, the fake
And
news,
me.
and you. You have, your personal freedoms, like they want you to wear a mask. They want you to get a vaccine. Those freedoms, they've taken your freedom of a religion. Remember when COVID was out, they literally stopped people from worshiping.
In their cars in a parking lot.
Yeah.
I remember that. I forgot.
And they wouldn't even
Yeah.
even before that, you couldn't even go.
Ridiculous.
And, they want they want an ideal situation where the Constitution stops.
Yep.
And it doesn't. It doesn't stop for a pandemic. It doesn't stop for a drug addict that dies in
No
Minneapolis.
emergency.
It doesn't stop for anything. There is no
There's
emergency
no emergency
that stops the
you're right, stop.
Constitution.
That's right. And they're trying to create it.
Yep.
And I guess smallpox is the next one that they're going to let go.
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
They just set it up, right?
The monkeypox.
Oh, somebody found it in a Pennsylvania lab. Uh-oh, everyone, get scared. Remember those that we found? Here they are, all over everybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think they're, that's no accident.
No, there's
Someone
nothing.
was cleaning a refrigerator in a lab and found smallpox? No.
No. Yeah, I know.
What's next?
So, that's that's just, the future of what they want to do. And their plan's falling apart in every sense. The COVID plan is falling apart. A lot of the issues that the critical race theory, of what they're trying to do in the schools, basically coming after your children, all of that's falling apart, and it's crumbling step by step by step, and it's happening at a rate to which everybody is opening their eyes and saying, hey, something's not right here. Why do I have to keep on getting vaccines? Why are they coming at my children like this? You put what in the school? You want them to believe what? Why haven't I been told about this? What do you mean I have no right to go to the school? I can't sit in on the classroom? These are questions that were never there.
There was something I was reading today about Lori Higgins for the Illinois Family Institute.
Mm-hmm.
She is a fantastic writer. She is just great. And check out the article today, but she talks about a situation where a boy, I think it was a Catholic school, and he got kicked off the team. He couldn't play because he was engaging in conversations that other people were putting forward on the idea of gender, whether there's two sexes or not. And because he disagreed, he was kicked off the team or not allowed to play the first game, something like that. And, there's another one that they're telling him he has to accept.
You have to accept all 81 of them. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, and how these things haven't gone through. Like, nothing's going through our usual past methods of intellectual rigor, right? Where we challenge ideas and we examine them thoroughly and we prove them. No, this side is saying, here is the truth, and everyone shut up and listen. And that's what's frightening, especially as an educator. To educate means to draw out truth.
Right.
And we are not drawing out truth. We are not even coming close to it. We're shutting it out. You can't call it education anymore. Indoctrination.
Speaking of education, as you've gone through your career, have you felt or seen or experienced changes in that education that you had to provide?
Yes. It's insidious, but it's there. And a lot of it has to do with the demographics of the school, for one thing, and the young people coming in from colleges as teachers and administrators, right? And so as the people who move to the school are free and reduced lunch, people with less money, who don't have as much of a stake, who have to rely on government more, have a more of a vote for the Democrat viewpoint.
Right.
When I first started at the school in 2000, it was very 50-50. And I could easily put an idea out there, and these kids are going to give their ideas, they're going to give their ideas, and we're going to learn from each other because we're going to share our ideas. And the past 5, I would say, I always had to be a devil's advocate because 95% of them were espousing one view,
Right.
that indoctrination, and the other 5% were afraid to speak. And they'd come to me after class, and they knew I was an open-minded person, and they'd tell
Why
me.
were they afraid to speak, though? I mean,
They get shot down. These kids' lives are...
from the other
Right.
from other teachers, I see.
Well, no, from the 95% in the
Oh,
classroom.
from the other class.
So
So
I
like
would
a peer
always,
pressure type thing?
Yes. My classes were always discussion. And all the ideas would come out if you just gave them an environment where they could just share their ideas. Because they loved it. They loved class discussions. They're aching to speak to each other, to look in each other's eyes and talk about whatever topic, you know? And the more minds that are involved in that, the better the discussion and the more you learn. And my students love my classes because that's how I operated. But I found over time that I had to play more and more of a devil's advocate role because all the views weren't coming out because either they wouldn't share because their ideas would get shot down by people in the room, or another aspect of it is social media. When education really went down in this district, when they handed every kid an iPad. That's when I saw it go like that, okay? Because now their lives are out on the internet, and we don't see their real lives. We think they're right here, but these kids are thinking about what are people going to say about me on Instagram or Snapchat, or if I say anything in this room. So less students share their ideas because of that social pressure. And then these iPads, they're just in another, it's just not a good learning tool. It hurt their education 100%. And then more and more of the teachers who came in, they're brainwashed into the 1619 project and the equity and these ideas that I saw too, but they weren't as rampant and not as accepted, and they were challenged more, like in the 90s. You remember the 90s when they tried to implement political correctness? A lot of this stuff?
Yes.
And the pushback, where did it come from? Comedians in Hollywood and your journalists and there was a lot of pushback from the entities that had a large voice in society.
Right.
And now they're all on that team. And that's why there's no more comedy. Nobody laughs anymore.
No.
I mean.
And those that are speaking out against it, like Dave Chappelle and others, are shot down immediately and censored.
Yep.
And banned, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And nothing's funny anymore.
Oh. And you could watch me just like Colbert. If you watch the evolution of Colbert, if you watch the evolution of Grey's Anatomy, if you just watch how they change, you can see that same change in education, that same kind of openness and reality and funny and let's make fun of everything, or Grey's Anatomy, look how diverse the characters are and how we all have these different views, to here's how everyone has to think. Here's how everyone has to think. Here's how everyone has to think. And so that's...
And I'm one of those few out there that I don't watch TV. And a lot of those shows, I've know the people, and I've watched maybe 30 seconds of anything they've ever done, and usually just shut it off and say they're an idiot, and that was the end of it. So I don't have really a whole connection on what that is.
Well, people who do, I don't watch any of it anymore either.
Right.
I won't, yes, but those were popular, and I think those people who have watched those shows can see the demise in that way. It correlates with this century, right, from 2000 to 2020. My career is definitely an example of that, and I did watch it go like that, absolutely. And technology was a huge factor. Putting a phone in every kid's hand, putting an iPad in every kid's hand, thinking, this is the future, they need this. Says who? Apple? They told you that, and so they're going to give you the money to buy these and make it cheap for you. So now you don't have to buy textbooks, and, it's not good.
Yeah, you have to use their technology.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, so I didn't buy into it. I would not we don't do iPads in my classroom. I mean, the most I did was PowerPoints. But I would use the textbook, and you could have the textbook, or I copy chapters for you. You're killing trees. I'm like, no. Actually, tell me what your phone and your iPad and the computer are going to do to our environment when you don't use them anymore. Where do they go? Paper, you can make into paper again.
Yeah, you can recycle paper.
Yeah, 100%. And the trees are grown for the paper. And so they add oxygen to the air. And so, no, I'm actually helping our environment
cycle of
way
life.
more. So that's how I got him with that.
So when you look at other teachers, like just to give you a quick, I started out as a social studies teacher.
Really?
Yes, years ago, and just a few years ago, and I didn't last long within the education system because I think the biggest thing was my student teaching. I had my supervising teacher. I brought my own curriculum per se that I wanted to teach. It went with the text, but he quickly told me that the children didn't have the critical thinking capability to grasp what I was going to teach them.
No.
Yes. And so this was back in 1990, I think, or 89, 90. And it struck me as odd. I was like, well, what do you mean? I go, I'm only 4 years older than them, 3 or 4 years older than them, and I learned it with no issue. Why can they not learn this? It's not like it's difficult. It's just a little different from what they're learning. And everything went well. He said, go ahead and do it. And, the ones that excelled normally excelled even more. The ones that, didn't understand anything anyways, nothing changed. And because it didn't matter what I would have taught them, they wouldn't have learned it anyways. So kids are that way.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my experience with the administration, with another teacher. Are there other teachers still, to this day, still doing that, where they don't follow...
Belief in the kids?
Yeah, the belief in the kids, where, obviously a lot of what we're seeing out there, critical thinking is just, independent thinking is just gone.
Well, that's interesting because I'm going to just say I'm ballparking this, 7 years ago, they brought to our school, they were concerned about the behavior. Demographics changed, so did the behavior. The value of education was lower, and the respect for the institution was lower. So what do we do to get their behavior to change? Positive-based behavioral, like
Right.
Pavlov's dog, basically.
Right.
Right? And so they hired somebody from Loyola University to come and guide us. And we basically were to explain the why behind the rules, and then when they followed those rules, give them a treat called a red ticket. Accumulate enough red tickets and get a prize. So you're basically bribing them to do the right thing. I was asked a year after the committee started to be on the committee because I was one, like I told you, I was always about how can we improve our school. But I'm always going to be the truth speaker too, right? And that's what I said. I'm like, why aren't we teaching them to think critically about what's right and wrong instead of, here's a red ticket, roll over,
Right.
So there's a perfect example of what you're talking about, right? We're not going to use education to educate them on how they should behave.
Right.
We're going to bribe them. And those tickets became worth a quarter after a while. And they literally were giving them money to do the right thing.
Oh, geez.
I think we finally got rid of that system. But I was a part of, trying to change that system. I always think you got to be a part of everything and, be the squeaky wheel sometimes, or at least keep people honest, and that's why another reason they didn't like me. Or, I try to keep people honest. And I am about doing the right thing and honesty and truth and finding truth and critical thinking 100%. Like, that's what that environment I tried to create
Sure.
was. Let's discuss it. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You disagree? Okay, you can respectfully disagree. It's okay. We're gonna, what we say in here stays in here. How's that? Will you guys agree with that? Can we have real honest conversations? And will you agree to disagree? Are you gonna be okay? Don't, but it doesn't. They take pictures in the classroom of each other. They text right away what somebody says.
That's another thing that I never experienced is the electronics influence, the tech influence on
The
students.
adults have been not doing right by their kids for the past 20 years. That's 100%. And I was against the iPads. The funny thing is, when they first brought them, and we had a new superintendent back then, I went to talk to him about it because, I wanted to know what he was thinking. And I was also told, oh, he wants to know what teachers think. So, meet up with him. I'm like, okay. So I make an appointment. He was very intimidating. Like, what are you doing? Okay. In this, not the friendly way I expected him to be. And but I'm like, why the iPads? He believed that it was going to create greater equity, that all the kids, this is what he believed.
I just like that term so much.
I know, but that was the idea is that kids of lesser means, which we had more of than ever before in our district because of, I believe, the new housing regulations that they did, their social engineering plans, get the people from the inner cities out into the burbs, scatter them about, and
Right.
okay, so that's kind of part of that. Those of lesser means, they can't afford an iPad. And the kids of greater means are going to have the iPad, which means that their education's going to be better. I don't know why, because that's where the knowledge is, that's access to the information. Why? Because it isn't the only place where the information is, and you still have to pay for that. Somebody has to pay for it. Anyway, he believed that they'd have access. Well, I remember a couple weeks after I met with him, one of the teachers in my department looks at the kid in the front row, and he's looking at pornography. So they handed him to them, and they also had no parameters from the beginning. So it was just like, here you go. And they trusted teenagers to do the right thing with them. Like, they don't want to teach them. They honestly think they're mini adults. They teach psychology in the school, which means they have teachers who know that the human brain is still developing in the stage of development. Therefore, they're not mini adults that can make good decisions. This part of their brain is still forming, and that's where impulse control comes in. And so they've really been kind of foolish, I think, in how they've approached a lot of what the decisions that have been made. But that's part of being human, too.
Right.
I think a lot of institutions are foolish in a lot of decisions they make. So, I mean, don't you ever look at somebody who's in charge of something and go, why? How did you get there?
Yeah.
How are you the manager of this place?
Right.
Whether they get elected there or appointed or hired, you're like,
Yeah, look at our governor. How did that happen?
how did that happen? How? It's a crazy world.
Look at our president.
I think it's because
How'd that happen?
Yeah, God has a sense of humor.
Yeah,
He's got
exactly.
to. That's the only explanation.
Amazing. So we can start wrapping it up a little bit. You mentioned and I can't remember the site, the funding site.
Give,
So if you
send,
want to
go.
give us a look at the camera, whatever one's yours, and
This one?
not me. Yeah, no, there you go, and just tell them what the link is or what the site is,
Okay.
and they can get it for you. So please go ahead.
My name is Jeanne, Jeanne, Hedgepeth, Hedgepeth. And my Give, Send, Go is on Give, Send, Go. Dave Pritchard is the manager of it. He's the one that put it together for me. Thank you, Dave. And Give, Send, Go is the site that it's on now. And I appreciate any dollar, and it's definitely for us. It's to help fight for truth, justice, and our Constitution ultimately.
Yes, that is true. So again, for Jeanne and for Illinois Standing Against Tyranny, for ISAT, please watch this video, please like this video, and subscribe to all of our stuff and share it. And the more you do that, the more it's going to help Jeanne, and the more it's going to help us as well. So thank you, Jeanne. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you, and thank you for this organization. This is awesome. I stand with you.
There you go. We got a commercial made.